Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something I know a lot of you are interested in, getting better at math and science. And not just, surface level stuff. We're going like deep, deep down into how our brains actually learn these subjects.
Yeah, it's a really fascinating area.
Yeah.
And there are techniques you can use to improve.
For sure, for sure. So, to guide us on this deep dive, we're using a YouTube video by Zach Starr called How to Excel at Math and Science. He draws a lot from the book A Mind for Numbers.
Oh, yeah, a fantastic book. For anyone who wants to, really go deep, I definitely recommend it.
Awesome. Okay, so Zach starts by talking about two modes of thinking, focused and diffuse. He says that they're both, essential for really deep learning. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's kind of like your brain has two gears, right? And you're, laser focused, really wrestling with a problem. That's your focused mode.
Okay.
But then there's this diffuse mode.
Right.
It's those moments when your mind is kind of wandering, and that's often where the magic happens. Your brain making connections in the background without you even realizing it.
So instead of, cramming all night for that exam,
Right.
maybe going for a walk or hitting the gym could actually help us solve that tricky math problem.
It sounds a little counterintuitive, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's actually this famous story about this French mathematician,
Yeah.
Henri Poincaré.
Okay.
He had been struggling with this really complex problem for weeks, and the solution just hit him while he was on vacation,
Wow.
stepping onto a bus. His diffuse mode had been working on this in the background.
Yeah.
And then when he finally relaxed, boom, the answer just appeared.
It really makes you wonder how many times we've missed out on some breakthroughs,
Total.
and not giving our brains a little downtime.
Yeah, absolutely. I think
Yeah.
we live in a culture that really prizes that constant focus and productivity.
Hmm.
But sometimes the best way to learn is to just step back and let our minds wander a bit.
I think you're right. Okay, so let's say we've got that focused mode working, right? But we're kind of stuck in a rut, looking at a problem only one way. Zach calls this the Einstellung effect, am I right?
Exactly. We get so fixated on one approach,
Yeah.
even if there's a simpler solution, a more elegant solution
Yeah.
right there in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
It's like our brains get stuck in these mental grooves.
Oh, yeah.
Zach uses the example of high schoolers and the quadratic formula. They just keep hammering away at it,
Total.
even when a much simpler method would work.
Oh, I am so guilty of that.
Yeah.
But how do we break free from those ruts?
Well, the first step is just awareness, right?
Okay.
Recognizing that you're stuck in one way of thinking is key.
Mhm.
And then, you got to consciously try to shift your perspective.
Yeah,
Look for other approaches, even if they seem a little unconventional at first.
right.
It's all about training your brain to be a bit more flexible and adaptable.
Yeah, like building those mental muscles for problem solving. So what about study techniques? Zach talks about this thing called the illusion of learning, where we think we're learning just by rereading notes or skimming, but we're not really grasping the concepts. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've all been there, right? It's so tempting to just passively take in the information.
Totally.
But to really learn something, you have to be actively engaged.
Okay.
Zach recommends this three-step process.
Mm.
First, really nail down the fundamentals.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be afraid to, ask questions, seek out help if you need it.
Right.
Then, really important, tackle practice problems without immediately jumping to the solutions.
Okay.
And finally, if you do need to look at a solution, you got to work through a similar problem afterwards.
Right, to really understand.
Exactly. It's not just about knowing how to solve it, but understanding why each step works.
It's making those connections. I remember in college, once I switched to that approach, it was like a light bulb went off. Things
Yeah.
finally clicked.
Exactly. It's about seeing that bigger picture.
Yeah. But of course, we can't forget about, the dreaded procrastination.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with math and science, it's so easy to get overwhelmed and put things off.
Zach's a big fan of the Pomodoro technique, those focused bursts of work followed by short breaks.
Right.
It's not just about managing time. It's about training your brain to really focus intensely for short periods,
Right.
which is, crucial for tackling complex math and science problems.
So it's like giving your brain a chance to catch its breath and process everything.
Yeah, exactly.
But how do you deal with that initial, resistance, that urge to just, procrastinate?
One good strategy is to shift your focus from the product,
Yeah.
finishing the assignment,
Right.
to the process, the actual time you spend learning.
Okay.
Kind of takes the pressure off that end goal.
Yeah.
Another great tip, Tackle the most difficult task first thing in the morning.
Ooh, like that.
Get it out of the way, Build some momentum for the rest of the day.
Like ripping off a Band-Aid? So Zach also mentions this technique called mental contrasting. What's that about?
Oh, yeah, mental contrasting. So that's basically visualizing your desired outcome, like
Yeah.
acing that exam or getting that dream job,
Yeah.
To boost your motivation.
So it's like reminding yourself why you're putting in the work in the first place.
Exactly.
Okay, so Zach also talks about the importance of persistence over innate talent. Did that resonate with you?
Oh, absolutely. He actually shares this story from the book about the author herself.
Oh, wow.
She initially hated math, but she ended up
What?
earning a doctorate in engineering. Her secret, dedicated effort and the right learning techniques.
That's amazing. It really proves that it's not about being a math person or a science person. It's about, developing those skills through hard work and strategy.
I couldn't agree more.
I think that's a great point to move to the next part of our conversation. Zach tells this incredible story about the 4-minute mile, which I think perfectly illustrates this idea of pushing past perceived limitations. But maybe we should save that for part 2. It's a good one, I promise.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Let's do it.
Great. So you were going to tell that story about the 4-minute mile.
Oh, right. Yeah, it's like this classic example of how what we believe can actually shape what's possible.
Okay.
So for over a century,
Mm-hmm.
people thought it was physically impossible for a human to run a mile in under 4 minutes.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was considered this insurmountable barrier.
A mythical feat almost.
Exactly. And then in 1954,
Yeah.
Roger Bannister, he just shattered that belief.
Wow.
He clocked in at 3 minutes, 59.4 seconds.
That's incredible.
It really is.
Can you imagine witnessing that?
I can't even imagine.
But here's the really fascinating part.
What's that?
So, less than 2 months later, someone else broke Bannister's record.
Wow.
And since then, thousands of people have run sub 4-minute miles.
Thousands, yeah. Including high schoolers.
It's crazy, right?
It really is mind-boggling.
So what's the takeaway here for our listeners?
I think it shows us the power of mindset.
Okay.
If we believe something is possible, it opens up all these possibilities that we might not have even considered before.
So you're saying this applies to any challenge, like
Yeah.
math and science, or anything really?
Exactly. We put these limitations on ourselves
Mm.
based on what we think we're capable of.
Yeah, I get that.
But this 4-minute mile story, it shows us that those limitations, they might be self-imposed,
Hmm.
not actual physical or mental barriers.
So it's about embracing that growth mindset,
Yeah.
that belief that we can always learn and improve.
And that's so crucial for success in anything.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap of what we've talked about so far.
Okay, sounds good.
We started with those 2 modes of thinking, focused and diffuse,
Right.
and how both are essential for deep learning.
You got to have that focus.
Right, but also time for our brains to
Yeah,
wander.
those connections.
Then we talked about that Einstellung effect
Mhm.
and how it can keep us stuck in one way of thinking.
Yeah, and the key is to just be aware of it.
Exactly.
And try to find different solutions.
We also talked about some practical study techniques,
Yes.
like active recall,
Hmm.
working through problems without looking at the solutions right away.
Right, and really understanding the why behind each step.
And of course, procrastination. We can't forget that.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
We talked about the Pomodoro technique,
Ah.
shifting our focus from the product to the process, tackling those tough tasks early in the day, and mental contrasting.
All great strategies.
And finally, the importance of persistence.
Yeah,
Natural talent is great,
of course.
but it's dedication and using good learning strategies that really make the difference.
Couldn't agree more.
I mean, that story of the author who went from hating math to, a doctorate in engineering.
It's inspiring, right?
Yeah, totally inspired.
It really shows you what's possible.
Thinking back to when I struggled with math, I wish I'd known all of this back then.
It's never too late to learn new ways to learn.
That's so true. And that's a really powerful message for our listeners, too.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter what you're trying to master.
Nope.
These principles, they can apply to anything.
Exactly.
It's funny, we always think of math and science as these fixed subjects.
Yeah.
But what we've been talking about today is really something much deeper.
For sure.
It's about how we learn, how we face challenges,
Yeah.
and how we unlock our potential.
Absolutely.
The techniques and the mindsets we've been exploring today,
Yeah.
they can be applied to like anything, any skill you want to master.
To anything, really.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with one final thought.
Right.
Think about a subject or a skill you've always wanted to learn.
Hmm.
Maybe something that's kind of intimidated you
Right.
or that you just, never made time for.
It could be anything.
Yeah, learning a language, picking up an instrument, mastering some new software.
Whatever it is.
Now imagine approaching that thing
Yeah.
with this new understanding of how your brain works.
Like we've been talking about.
Exactly. Imagine using those focused and diffuse modes of thinking,
Right.
consciously trying to avoid that Einstein effect,
Hmm.
and really applying those study techniques.
It's powerful stuff.
Think about what might be possible if you
If
if you break down those mental barriers,
Yeah.
if you embrace the power of persistence and really, really believe in your ability to learn
Boom.
what new horizons could you explore? What challenges could you overcome?
The possibilities are endless.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into learning. We hope you've learned a thing or two and are feeling inspired to tackle some challenges. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.